Welcome to this video on the IHA Officiating Standard for the 2022-2023 season. This officiating standard is taken directly from the IIHF Officiating Standard utilised at IIHF World Championships. This video covers principles of penalty enforcement, physical play, restraining fouls, and fair play, and includes information and video examples on both legal and illegal plays to ensure a consistent standard can be called and player safety kept to a high standard. Maintaining and controlling the standard at which officiating operates brings the game of ice hockey to a level where the skills of the players determine the outcome of games, plus promotes a strong image of our sport for the fans, media, spectators, and the promotion of our sport for more people to participate. This officiating standard is not a zero-tolerance policy in the assessment of penalties. Game officials should utilize game management to allow the player's skill to shine. Intimidation tactics have no place in ice hockey. These tactics include any contact to the head of the opponent, checking from behind, and late body checks to an opponent who is no longer in control of the puck. Officials are instructed to enforce these rules to a high standard and assess the appropriate penalty when these actions occur. Officials are expected to strictly enforce any avoidable contact occurring after the whistle, including during scrum situations around the goal. The principles of enforcing penalties when body checking takes place include the following. The purpose of a body check is to gain possession of the puck. Proper body checking technique starts with stick on puck. Therefore, the stick blade of the player delivering the check must be below the knees. Only the trunk, hips to shoulders of the body shall be used to deliver a body check. The check must be delivered to the trunk, hips to shoulders, and directly from in front or the side of the opponent. The onus is on the player delivering the check to avoid placing a vulnerable or defenseless opponent in danger of potential injury. Physical play is a natural part of the game of ice hockey, both to protect the puck and to gain possession of the puck from an opponent. Player safety is always the priority. In this section, we will go through physical play aspects of ice hockey. A basic component in the game of ice hockey is gaining possession from an opponent by using a body check to separate the player from the puck. It is important that a player is not allowed to use a body check with force or other means to create a situation where the player is intentionally separated from the game or in any way endangered. Body checking is a shared part of the game. The checker and the receiver share responsibility in creating a safe environment. The majority of the responsibility is on the checking player, but the receiver must not put themselves in a dangerous position.
Welcome to this IHF rule instructional video regarding physical play. In this video, we'll like to point out the key factors around legal body checking and illegal body checking. In this first example, we will have a contact from the white player on the blue player as the blue player is receiving a pass from a colleague. What we see is that the player in the white team initiates body contact in order to separate the opponent from the puck. White player stays tucked and delivers a controlled body check towards the opponent. The player is not adding any force, any speed, any upward motion, making this a dangerous hit. This is a good example of a fair body check. In this second situation, we'll see a similar act, but where the impact looked a lot more forceful. Breaking this down, we see how the white players adds no speed or force, stays tucked in the entire situation, and really tries to separate the puck from the player. The white player is delivering a check that is controlled and where he is not targeting any head or any other part of the player's body. This is a good check where the player is really taking care of both himself and the opponent. The white player could have chosen other ways to enter this contact where the force and the impact would be a lot higher and where the sole target would have been to separate the player from the game and not the player from the puck. In the following situations, we will see examples of body checking that is not within the framework of what is legal. In this play, we see how the blue player makes contact with the white player after losing possession of the puck. The blue player makes contact with the opponent up high towards the head and neck area. The blue player uses an upward motion to target the opponent's head and neck area. This is one of the key factors making this an illegal play. The blue player is also adding the arms as a mean of force to add impact towards the opponent. This is not in any way trying to separate the player from the puck, only trying to separate the player from the game. In this situation, the blue player shall be penalized for an illegal check, in this case a check towards the head and neck area. In this second example, we'll see how two players are engaged in battle for puck possession, and a white player comes in as the third player in the situation. The red player has just played the puck when the white player is checking the opponent. The white player has no regards to separate the player from the puck, and is not adjusting the speed and the force in the check to enable a safe check on the opponent. The player has an upward motion, creating a high force into the situation. And as the player elevates into the check, he targets the opponent's head and neck area with a great force, putting the opponent for a high risk of injury and is truly recklessly endangering the opponent's health. This is a situation that should be penalized and is not seen as a legal hit.
Competitive contact is body contact between two or more players who are in the immediate vicinity of the puck. Skaters are trying to gain possession of the puck. Skaters are reasonably allowed to push and lean into each other if possession of the puck remains the sole object of the contact.
In our first part regarding physical play and the body checking, we talked about the basic principles of the checking games all over the ice. In this part, we would like to pay a little bit extra attention on what we call competitive contact. This is situations where players are chasing towards a free puck in, for example, an icing situation. As we see in this clip, players are adjusting speed and force to make this competitive contact in a good way. It is important that both players share the responsibility to watch on the angles and the force into the body contact when competing for the free pucks. In no way can they use any contact that puts an opponent to a dangerous position. In all these three examples, this has been a good shared responsibility between the players. In this last situation, we will see how the white player and the red player is chasing a free puck. The white player is slightly ahead of the red player, where the red player is using his skates and feet to trip the opponent in a dangerous way in close connection to them playing the puck. This is a dangerous situation, and this is in no way a good competitive contact. A player acting in this way shall be penalized according to the rules.
There is no such thing as a legal check to the head or neck area of an opponent. Checking to the head or neck is associated with a high risk of injury. A minor penalty shall only be assessed when a player accidentally contacts an opponent's head in connection to a legal check.
In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth in one aspect of physical play, and that is illegal checks towards the head and neck area. It is important to emphasize the only options for a game official is to call an illegal hit towards a check or the head for a minor penalty or a match penalty. Checks to the head is connected with a high risk of injury. As we can see in this particular situation, the white player has plenty of time to adjust or even avoid this check towards the opponent. White player elevates into the checks and makes an upward motion to target the opponent's head. In this situation, there is no way for the blue player to avoid that the contact comes up to the head, and the white player makes the head the primary contact for the check. This situation shall be penalized with a match penalty for a legal check to the head. In this second clip, we will see a battle around the boards for the puck between a yellow player and a player in the maroon team. The yellow player loses the puck and gets checked by the opponent. The player in the maroon team has the time and the possibility to adjust the speed and the impact point in the check. In this situation, the yellow player has no possibilities to defend himself for the incoming contact and the impact point to be the head of the player. The maroon player is checking the opponent in a way where the head area is the primary point of contact. This is something that the maroon player could have adjusted and avoided. In this situation, the player in the maroon team shall be penalized with a match penalty for a legal check to the head and neck area. In this third situation, we will see how a player in the white team and the player in the blue team battles for puck possession in the corner. White player has just shot away the puck when the blue player follows through in the contact. Blue player uses a force and position into the hit where an upward motion is driving the impact point towards the head. The player is checking the opponent in a way where the head area is the primary point of contact. This situation is connected with a high risk of injury and recklessly endangerment of the opponent and shall be penalized with a match penalty for a legal check to the head and neck area.
The boards are not to be used as a weapon to increase impact on an opponent. A player being checked from behind is always considered reckless endangerment, as there is high risk of injury to an opponent. The checking player is always responsible for delivering a safe check. However, the receiver must not put themselves in a dangerous position.
The German player sees the Canadian player approaches from behind and is not adjusting the position to protect himself in the best possible way. The German player sees the approaching Canadian player and still chooses to keep the back and the numbers up. The player puts himself already from the start in a vulnerable position, knowing the approaching opponent. This does not take away the responsibility from the Canadian player to adjust the speed and the impact point on the German player. This is a good example where checking from behind should not be called, but boarding. In this situation, the Latvian player sees the Finnish player approaching and at the last second turns around and creates an impact that is highly risk of injury. This is to be penalized, but as the player turns, sees the player and then turns around, this should be called for a boarding. In the judgment of the game officials, this should be at least a minor penalty for boarding, but could be, in the judgment of the game officials, also a major without game misconduct. Note that this situation is not to be called checking from behind, but boarding, due to the fact that the player turns prior to impact.
In women's and non-body checking hockey, competitive body contact between players is allowed if the contact does not cross the line of where the force of contact is deemed a check. Legal body contact is defined by two skaters that are trying to gain possession of the puck and who are using their body to push and lean into the opponent. Possession of the puck remains the sole object of the contact.
In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth into the physical play and what is allowed or not allowed in the form of body checking within women's ice hockey. It is important to start with that body contact between players in women's hockey is allowed, and that the sole purpose of that contact must be to gain possession of the puck from the opponent. The contact is limited to actions of force such as shoving and leaning towards an opponent into the situations. And as we can see in this particular situation, the white player must adjust her speed and distance to the opponent to enable a safe and fair body contact. The player must go into the contact with the sole purpose of gaining possession of the puck by leaning into the opponent. As we can see in this situation, the player is using a force that is not leaning or pushing towards an opponent. It is a body check and shall be penalized. In this other example, we see a battle between the black player and the player in the white team. The player number 22 goes into the situations where they're battling for the puck already, and she must go in with the sole purpose of the contact to play the puck. She can use force to do this, but it has to be of a character of leaning in towards an opponent. As this player is already engaged in a contact and the force of the hit is higher than expected, this is to be penalized as an illegal hit. In the following examples, we will see a good body contact between players. In this first example, number 22 in the red team goes in. She goes in and tries to play the puck. She has the intentions to play the puck from the opponent, and she's using her body to make contact with the opponent, but in a way where she is leaning in towards the opponent and using a physical force that is not going over the limit of body contact. This is a good body contact to separate the player from the puck. In this other situation, we see how the player in the blue team and the white team is battling for a loose puck. Both are competing down towards the puck, and they are engaged in the battle for the puck. Neither plays breaking their skating lane or goes into the situation by any bigger force than leaning towards the opponent. Both players are using their strengths, and in this particular situation, blue player is using her strength and leans in towards the opponent to win the battle for the puck.
Game officials must use their judgment to grade the severity of the contact based on the following factors when determining what sort of penalty shall be imposed: the force of the contact made by the checking player, the speed used to move into the situation by the checking player, the contact point on the opponent by the checking player, the usage of the boards as a means to add force and power in the situation, the possibility for a checked player to maintain her skating position. We will now watch two videos which will provide examples of minor penalty for illegal hit, followed by examples of a major penalty for illegal hit.
In this instructional movie, we will go more in depth into the standard of calling minor penalties for illegal hit. In this first situation, we will see how the player in the black team enters a situation with a player in the yellow team. The black player is using more force in this situation than what is necessary and needed for gaining possession of the puck. The player is using more force than leaning and shoving the opponent in that body contact situation. This is a good example of when a minor penalty for illegal hit should be assessed. In this second situation, we see how the player in the yellow team is initiating a contact that is also of a higher force than leaning and shoving. The yellow player uses a speed and force that is still seen as low in the action, but is high enough to take this from a legal body contact to an illegal body contact. In this last situation, we will see how the player in the white team enters a battle for puck possession with a player from the red team. The player in the white team is using force and speed that is higher than allowed when it comes to making body contact with an opponent. In this situation, the white player needs to adjust the speed and force into the situation and the contact. In this situation, a minor penalty for illegal hit shall be assessed. In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth about the standard of calling major penalties for illegal hit. In this first situation, we will see how the black player is passing, shooting away the puck and gets checked by the opponent. The yellow player has time to adjust her position and speed as the player in the black team releases the puck. The yellow player is using a force into the contact that is seen as excessive and recklessly endangers the opponent. This situation shall be penalized with a major and game misconduct for illegal hit. In this second situation, we will see how a player in the black team plays the puck around the corner and gets body checked by a player in the white team. As we can see in this video, black player in the puck possession is going towards the boards and try to protect the puck. The white player is using a force into the contact that is seen as excessive and recklessly endangering the opponent. In this situation, the white player needs to use less force into the check to make this a legal body contact. This situation shall be penalized with a major plus game misconduct for illegal hit. In our third and last video, we'll see how the player in the red team and yellow team battles for the puck down by the boards. The yellow player can find a different way to make body contact and a different impact point and force to gain puck possession in the situation. In the situation, the yellow player is using a force that is seen as excessive and recklessly endangers the opponent. This situation is a good example of a major penalty plus game misconduct for illegal hit.
Ice hockey is a game of high speed with quick changes of position. Extra awareness is required to ensure the knee is not used when stopping or checking an opponent. This type of checking constitutes high carelessness and potential for high recklessness and endangers an opponent. A penalty should be enforced when a player is leading with their knee and or extending their leg outwards to make contact with their opponent.
In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth in a specific physical aspect. We will look a bit more into situations connected to kneeing. Kneeing is in general a very dangerous action, connected with a high risk of injury, but there is still differences between minor penalties and major penalties called for kneeing. In this video, we will see an example of a minor penalty. As we can see, the white player leads in with her knee into the contact. She makes a direct contact with the opponent with her knee. This is with low force and low speed and seen as a minor penalty for kneeing. In this situation, we see a white player that has plenty of other options to avoid the contact and impact point. White player still continues to lead in with her knee into the situation and makes a direct contact with the opponent with her knee. The player comes in a high speed and with a great force, connected with a high risk of injury and recklessly endangers the opponent. In this situation, the white player shall be assessed a major plus game misconduct penalty for kneeing.
We We will now change focus to the standard of rules that fall under restraining fouls. A player is allowed to use the stick as a tool to gain possession of the puck from an opponent. This is predominantly the main way a player gains possession from an opponent. A player is not allowed to use the stick in an illegal way, as described in hooking and slashing, where contact is obvious, a benefit is created, or there is a risk of injury. This picture aims to map out clearly where the risk areas of using the stick towards an opponent are located. If the player uses their stick to gain possession from their opponent in the green area and is using reasonable force, there is very low risk of being penalized for hooking or slashing. As soon as the player reaches the yellow area, the risk increases that there is an action that may result in a penalty associated with hooking or slashing. When the player enters the red area, or in any other way uses their stick against the body to slash or hook an opponent, there is a very high risk that a hooking or slashing will be called.
In the first part around the restraining fouls, we'll talk about stick actions such as hooking and slashing. Let's start to look on the standard for implementation on hooking actions. As we see in the situation, the red player is chasing the white player, putting up the stick towards the hands and gloves on the opponent. This action from the red player is hindering the white player to properly play the puck. In this situation, a minor penalty for hooking shall be called. In the next situation, we will see how the white players are chasing two blue players into their attacking zone. In this situation, both white players are using the stick towards the hands and arms on the opponent. The player in the white team uses the stick towards the hands and arms in a way that hinders the blue player to play the puck in a proper way. Blue player even loses the control of the puck. Coming up from behind in the second situation, the player in the white team uses the stick towards the hands and arms of the opponent, trying to play the free puck. In this situation, it is possible for the game officials to assess two separate minor penalties. In our third situation, we will see how a player in the red team is going at the net and trying to create a scoring opportunity. In this situation, we see how the yellow player uses the stick to play up towards the hands of the opponent. When a player is using the stick, there has to be an intention to play down towards the green area. In this green area is where the player can show that the intention is to play towards the puck. As soon as the player reaches up towards the yellow area, the risk increases that the penalty could be called. When the stick comes up towards the red area shown here in this video, the risk increases drastically for the player to be called for a slashing or a hooking penalty. This is the area where the biggest effect on a player's ability to move, pass or shoot the puck is shown. In this situation, we can clearly see how the yellow player's action hinders the red player from shooting and playing the puck in a proper way. In this situation, the game official shall assess a minor penalty for slashing. In our last situation, we will see how two players battles for the puck. In this case, the yellow player uses a stick to play down towards what we call the green area on the stick of the opponent in the action to try to gain possession of the puck. As both players are engaged in battle for the puck and the puck possession, this is a good play. A player can never use the stick with an excessive force or with a violent force towards an opponent's stick, especially when it comes up towards the red and the yellow area. It is important to note that this situation is never black and white. For example, if a player uses the same kind of motion to swing and slash towards an opponent's stick and breaks the stick, that this player could then be penalized by the game officials for this offense.
A player is not allowed to use any part of the body in an illegal way to grab, push, or shove an opponent to gain possession of the puck. This is covered under holding and roughing. A penalty may be called where contact is obvious, a benefit is created, or there is risk of injury.
In the second part regarding restraining fouls, we'll look a little bit more in depth into the usage of hands and body in close contact with the opponents. As we can see here in the first situation, blue player is chasing down the white player from behind and is using the free hand to catch up the white player as he is turning towards the puck. This hinders and stops the movement of the white player. In this situation, the blue player is using, in an illegal way, the arms and the body to stop up an opponent from playing freely in his area. This shall result in a minor penalty for holding. In the other situation, we will see how the white player is chasing down the blue player. The white player is coming from behind and uses the free hand to grab and stop up the opponent in the ability to play the puck freely. This movement is slowing down and stopping the blue player in the action that he is entitled to have in this close contact. This situation shall be deemed as a holding situation, and the player shall be assessed a minor penalty for this action.
Regardless of where the puck and players are, the goal is always to keep players and puck in motion. A player that uses their body and/or the boards to cover or stop the puck and making it impossible to play, or shows no attempt to play the puck and keep it moving, may be penalized for delaying the game.
In this last information video, we would like to highlight a little bit about situations where players are deliberately slowing down or delaying the game by stopping up the puck towards the boards. In ice hockey, speed and movement, both from players and puck, is a crucial aspect. What we see in this situation is when players are deliberately pushing up their skates and the puck towards the boards. It is important that all players must try to keep the play in motion at all time. And if a player is deemed to stop up, step up on, or push the puck deliberately against the boards to slow down or stop play, that player could be penalized. As we see here in the second part, the player must try to keep the play and puck in motion at all times. And we want to stress that if a player is deemed to intentionally stop up the play and delaying the game, a penalty may be assessed from the game officials. As we speak about slowing down and stopping up the game, the same intention goes for when a player is stopping up or stalling down the play by taking a position behind its own goal net. It is okay to be in this position and to build up a play, but to maintain this position and to stall down time and to drag down the clock is not a tactic that will be tolerated.
Game officials are instructed to strictly follow the rules outlined in the rulebook concerning abuse of officials and unsportsmanlike conduct. Any sort of abusive behavior, regardless of the situation or whom it is directed towards, shall be penalized according to the rules. There is no place in ice hockey for obscene gestures, racial slurs or taunts, or sexual remarks during or after the game, on or off the ice, and any location while in the arena and its connected premises. Any player who blatantly dives, embellishes a fall or a reaction, or who feigns an injury shall be penalized with a minor penalty. It is important to distinguish the difference between diving and embellishment. Diving is the action of a player trying to draw a penalty against an opponent, while embellishment is the act of a player attempting to make a foul look bigger than it is, even though the foul has been committed.
In this first situation, we will see how there is a contact between the white player and the blue player. As we can see from the blue player, there is a contact up high from the white player towards the opponent, but the contact is not worthy of a penalty. In this particular situation, the blue player makes motions with his head, upper body, in a way that the contact from the opponent was made actually up there and much worse than what it really was. This is a situation that falls under the rule of diving. In this second situation, we will see how the white player takes the puck up the ice and gets a light contact from the opponent in the maroon team. The player falls down. As we can see, there is a light contact on the white player's skate, lower body, from the opponent, but that contact is not particularly hard. It could affect the white player's ability to skate, and the white player is overplaying in this situation and conducting an embellishment movement to make this situation look bigger than what it actually was. This situation should be penalized a minor penalty for diving and embellishment.
Thank you for watching this officiating standard video. Your commitment to improving your understanding of the officiating standard is commended. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the IHA Referee-in-Chief.